Boy, that filled me with pride hearing it come from the back of the room like that. Fantastic.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by faxing notice of the meeting to the Atlantic City Press, Star Ledger, Camden Courier, and Atlantic County Record on January the 7th, 2022. Mr. Cheek?
Here.
Ms. Hopkins? Here. Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mr. Vitale?
Here.
Mayor Kane?
Here. All right, next I'd ask that you join me for a moment of silence for private reflection. All right, moving on. We will move on to guest presentations. We do not have any this evening, correct? All right. All right, then we'll move right on to Mr. Percy. Mr. Percy, would you be kind enough to come up?
Yes, sir.
Come down.
Hello, Jack. Good, how are you? You look well.
All right, well, this evening we're going to honor Jack for his lifelong dedication to this
Mayor,
township.
Mayor, a little closer to the microphone.
Usually projected as we pick up. Is that better? Bring the mic to you. Sure. All right, so usually it's simply a proclamation, but I had this given to me with Jack's accomplishments. So I'm going to try to shorten this up a little bit, but no shortage of the appreciation that we have for him. Obviously, we all know that Jack is a lifelong resident of the Township of Hamilton. Jack attended, there's a lot here, so I'm going to try to go through these, and we're going to skip a couple. Jack received a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Drexel. He received a Master of Arts in Instructional Technology from Stockton. He was an auditor for the Department of Treasury for 27 years. He was a treasurer for the Hamilton Township School Board for 20 years. I think Jack's got socks over him, I'm not sure, but treasurer and CFO for the Township of Hamilton for 6 years. And I know you'll correct me if I miss anything. Adjunct professor at Atlantic Cape Community College for the past 20 years. He's worked for the Southern Regional Educational Technology Training Center at Stockton University for the past 18 years. Elected to Township Committee in 1981 to 1992. He was the mayor of this great town for 1982, 1989, 1992. Deputy mayor in 1986, 1991. He was first appointed to the planning board in 1965. The town looked a little different back then. He served 38 years and is still a current member, which I enjoy. I've been sitting with Jack, I think, for the last 10 plus years now, and his knowledge is really institutional on that board, and it's a pleasure sitting with him. Been a member of the Environmental Commission, the Atlantic County, and this is one of Jack's passions, Atlantic County Office of Emergency Management, member since 2007. And then, of course, we can talk about his distinguished military career. He served in the U.S. Army from 1953 to 1956 during the Korean War, longtime member of New Jersey Naval, Militia, Joint Command, U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, and State Bar Association of the United States, and American Legion Post 54, Vice Commander from 2009 to 2016, and Commander from 2004 to 2008. And of course, we know these are just a few of Jack's community service listing. I also am a brother with him in the lodge, Unity Lodge number 96, free accepted Masons in town here since 1955, Jack. That's quite a few years. Boy Scouts of America Troop 46, obviously Little League Baseball and Football, the Lauderdale 4-H Club, and the Oak Crest High School Band Parents Association. So There are just a few of the things that I wanted to go over. And tonight, we just wanted to thank Jack for show him appreciation for all those things and more that he brings. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to everything that he joins and contributes to, and he's greatly appreciated here in the township, not only by the president, but of course by the township committee and myself as mayor, Jack. So with that, I will move on to the proclamation. Proclamation. Whereas John J. Jack Percy, a lifelong resident of the Township of Hamilton, has conscientiously served the citizens of the township for decades, including his tenure as the township's treasurer and chief financial officer from 1972 to 1978, and as treasurer of the Hamilton Township School Board from 72 to 92. And whereas Jack Percy was elected to the Township Committee in 1981, serving 4 consecutive terms until 1992, and he was selected by his fellow committee members to serve as deputy mayor in 1986, 91, and as mayor in 82, 89, and 92. And whereas Jack Percy has selflessly volunteered his time, talents, and leadership to serve the citizens of the community and work for the betterment of the Township of Hamilton in many capacities, including his many years at the Township's Emergency Management Office, the Environmental Commission, the Strategic Planning Committee, as well as over 30 years service on the Planning Board. He also served in the U.S. Army from 1953 to 1956 during the Korean War, and has been an active member of the American Legion Post 254 and the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary. Now therefore, we, the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, State of New Jersey, on this day, January 18, 2022, do hereby honor John J. Jack Percy III in recognition of his lifetime of devotion to the Hamilton Township community. Although individuals who selflessly serve others neither receive nor seek the thanks of the public, we take this opportunity to express our sincere and grateful appreciation for his remarkable service and to offer our best wishes to him for continued success, happiness, and good health.
Press, it'll be a while.
There's just a couple of notes that not gonna add to it, but it's been a long ride, but it's been an enjoyable ride. I attended the Mays Landing High School. People don't realize we used to have a high school here. And the last 8th grade class that we were in, we were going to go to the 3rd floor because that's where the high school was. But we didn't get to go there. They stopped. So we had to make a decision where we're going to go to school. Well, we could go to high school in Pleasantville or Egg Harbor. I ended up going to Egg Harbor because a lot of my activities were in Egg Harbor. Boy Scouts, church, St. Nick's basketball, basketball at St. Nick's, and Kearney's Field. So that was my start in this municipality. After one of my honors that I received when I was in high school, my junior year, I was a Boy State representative. I went to Rutgers for a week. And to this day, 254 doesn't exist any longer. We're now part of 158, which some of the members are here tonight. I'm now the Boy State chairman of that post, and represents Greater Egg Harbor Regional and the ACLT. When I came back from the military, well, I went to school in New York for 2 years, and things didn't work out as well as I expected after I graduated, so I came back to Mays Landing. There was nothing really here, so I enlisted in the Army. I didn't tell my parents that, and boy, did they get upset when I told them I was joining the Army. They said, "It's the Korean War. You're going to..." Well, as parents do. Luckily, nothing happened. I came back, went to Drexel, During the period of time that I was going to Drexel, I would come, we lived in Philadelphia. We'd come back to the town on the weekends, and I was part of the Laureldale Volunteer Fire Company as a junior fireman. My father was a charter member of that company. Jimmy Kerrigan's father was a charter member of that company too. And what does a junior fireman do? Washes the floor, polishes the truck. You don't get to ride any of the occasions because you're not here during the week. But one of the events when I was still with the fire department was the burning down of the skating rink. I was there that cold night. Were you there that cold night?
I was there, snowing.
Ice, snow all over the place. We had gotten, our Laureldale truck got down to the lakeside. We cut a hole in the ice. Ray Kilgore and myself cut a hole in the ice, put the drafting tube in, started the water up, and Chief Yetter of the fire department said, "Let it burn." And a couple of hot firemen, no, we couldn't have saved that building anyway. It was too old and too. But that was one of the momentous times that I had with the fire department. We had a 4-H club out in Laureldale. A lot of people don't realize it. 4-H club when I was a kid. 4-H has been around. I've probably been involved with the 4-H for 70 years. Tradition of time. One of the men in this town, when I was about to graduate, one of the men in this town asked me, well, what was I going to do when I graduated? And I said, well, I was a co-op student. I'd worked in the bank in Philadelphia. Drexel had offered me a position as a counselor in a night school. He said, you know, why is it that you young people, when you get your education, you take it to someplace else, you don't bring it back here? His name was Harry Denmead. One of the greatest men that this town ever had. He, along with Bill Davies and a couple of others, you know, so they just asked to come back. Ask the students to come back. And for you people who have students in college, ask them to come back to your town and help improve the town. Well, my two oldest daughters were about to go to school. My wife didn't really want them to go to school in Philadelphia. I didn't really want them to go to school in Philadelphia. My parents wanted us to come back to the area, so we came back to the area. First job was at Wheaton's. Everybody used to go to Wheaton's for a job. I didn't stay there that long because it was a company town, and I didn't really appreciate that. One of the neighbors was working for the state of New Jersey, and I said, well, how the heck do you get a job like you have? He said, you go to Trenton, you knock on the door, and you ask them if there's any jobs available. And that's what I did the next day. And I spent 27 years with the Division of Taxation in the state of New Jersey. And it was a great job. I met a lot of nice people. Through that occasion of working with the accountants in the area, I came across a young man who kind of impressed me. And when I set up on his board, we needed a chief financial officer. And I immediately called his office and said, are you still looking for a job? He said, yeah. I said, we have one available. Would you like it? He said, sure. His name was Rich Tuthill. He spent 25 years as our chief financial officer here. A lot of folks, Bill Chrisman, guy named Pritchard back there, a lot of people that I knew as I was coming through the ranks up here, I was able to give them some assignments in the town, and they've been faithful employees ever since. Not only employees, but volunteers. That's the good word for it. They don't get paid for it. You know? Fraternally, I've been involved with the Masonic Order for 7 years. Warsaw Master Dewey Lodge, Dave King is here tonight. Involved with the Eastern Star, worthy matron Linda Tebow is here tonight. I didn't realize it until not too long ago. My family has 4 generations in the Eastern Star, Dewey Chapter, Eastern Star. 4 generations, to my grandmother, to my mother, myself, to my daughter, and now my wife. One of the fellows who sat on this township committee helped me a while back. He was on the Board of Education. His name is Harvey Kessler. He asked me one day, he said, would you come over to the Board of Education and work for us and help the BA? So I became the assistant BA to the Board of Education because the BA needed help. So I helped her for about 4 years until they changed regimes over there and they decided that they didn't want me there any longer. And during the time I was doing my master's degree, Stockton had an office right over here in Bonnie. It was Bonner Buick at one time. In fact, Bonner just died. And I was taking a course there, and he came in, and I didn't realize that he was the administrative head of that unit right there. And it wasn't too long after that, he phones me up again. He said, would you like to come to work for me over at SRIETC? He said, this lady over there needs some help, and we can help. So in between times, from Atlantic Cape Community College in Stockton, I spent 20 years as an adjunct professor at ACC and 14 years at SRIETC until China virus shows up, and for the last 2 years I'm unemployed. So, part of the things I got involved with the Coast Guard Auxiliary through the New Jersey Naval Militia Command. And through the Coast Guard Auxiliary, I worked my way through the channels up through the emergency management career path. And 2 events that I will always remember: the Pope visits Philadelphia, the Democrat National Convention. Through the emergency management positions that I held there, I was on the inside, the Incident Command Center at Sector Delaware Bay. A lot of people don't realize that Philadelphia is a port, and something like that is a national scene. Philadelphia Police don't have any jurisdictions. New Jersey State Police, no jurisdiction. Pennsylvania State Police, no jurisdiction. It's the Coast Guard. And the captain of the port captain, is in charge. And I was inside with the port captain and all his entourage, which was a fantastic experience. The couple of things that I'll conclude with, a lot of things I could say otherwise, but I forget, it was 1987, 88, I don't know. The guy Bobby Gardner calls me on the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning, he said, hey, Jack, town hall's on fire. Well, they always jerking the chain for something. Always giving me a hard time to do it. I said, yeah, thank you, I'm going back there. He said, no, I'm serious, the town hall's on fire. So, with about 3 minutes time, I was in town hall, getting the computers out the back door. Coming back down the back stairs, getting the computers out. Consequently, we opened this building in 1992. And this room was filled to capacity with people who were part of the celebration that we had in the opening of this building. 2 people very much responsible for that was Reverend John Ash, who was the chairman of that committee, and a gal by the name of Mary Lizinski. They put it together. They put together the most fantastic program that this town, as far as I'm concerned, has ever seen. We even had a visit from Mr. Underhill. Underhill was here that day. Yeah. In the person of Rodney Bouchard, who just left this committee. It was a wonderful day. And you'll notice behind here, this seal. Sometime during that, before that period of that event, some people said, "What that seal that you have for the Township of Hamilton it's a really a crummy seal. It's a building with a tall smokestack and smoke spec." And he said, those people were saying, "That's not our town." I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" "Well, can we get a new seal?" So I asked the Environmental Commission and the Historical Commission to put their heads together and come up with a concept for a new seal for the Township of Hamilton. They gave that concept to a young man whose father I just mentioned. His name is Joel Denmead. Joel Denmead created that seal. That's the seal you see on all the vehicles, all the shoulder patches. That seal was created for that event, for that day in 1992 when we dedicated this building. And those two, John Ash and Mary Lazitsky, really did a superb job putting this program together to dedicate this building. I'd like to thank the members of the Post 250, Bill 254/158 or 158/254. And that guy, Bill Will, sitting right there, you know, you don't give an old guy a rifle.
Try to avoid it.
He now has me carrying a rifle, doing the rifle routines, but it's all right. I was trained on the M1, 7 out of 8 bulls at the 500-yard line. So that was pretty good for a little country boy from Egg Harbor on the Fort Dix Range up there. Coast Guard Auxiliary, our Vice Commander from Flotilla 84, Atlantic City Boat Station is here with us this evening. Members of Unity Lodge / Trinity Lodge. No, Unity Lodge, they're not part of Trinity, and they're having a meeting tonight, but I'm also a member of Dewey. The boss of the district is here, Doug Dickinson, former member of council, Egg Harbor City, many years ago. Thanks for coming out, Doug. Doug Hand and
Never heard you in a long time, so I thought I'd get a lot of knowledge.
What? He usually sits in the back and says like this, cut it off, okay? But there are many things I could go on and on about this town. I'm glad I came back to the town. A lot of memories here. Thanks everybody for coming out. Planning board chairman is here. He puts me to work all the time. I guess that's about it. Now, one of the things I do want to do, though. I'll be right back.
While Jack's doing that, I do want to mention something. As we have our former planning board chair, Mr. Cheek here, Harry Blicky in the back is our current planning board chair. And we've spent a lot of time on the planning board together with Jack on many different applications. And Jack is affectionately known, we didn't put it in the proclamation, but Jack is affectionately known on the planning board as Sidewalk Jack, okay? Because if you're coming into this town with a plan, I can tell you, and you're coming before the planning board, Jack Percy is going to make sure that the public is safe when that plan is completed. So he will argue the safety issues, not argue, he will point out the safety, the advantageous nature of the safety items on the plan, and he will get sidewalks everywhere. So if you're walking on a sidewalk in town, chances are Jack had something to do with it. And Bill the other night, Bill Christmas here, and Bill, I didn't realize that Bill has served continuously since 1987. Jack appointed him in 1987. So they are the commitments that Jack has made to this town. And Jack, we wish you all the best, and we wish you many years of continued good health and continue what you're doing, because you really do add a real level of professionalism to this township. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate everything.
doing a good job. Is that the way I wrote it? One thing I want to do before I leave, there's one person who's essentially responsible for a lot of what I do, allowing me to do what I do. And her name is Ruth, my wife. She's not well. She can't be here tonight. But I did, and I don't know whether Lisa can get this or not, but I was going to present her with my wife and Rosie's for this event. Now, is this my good side, Lisa? This, and maybe she'll be able to see this on YouTube, I don't know. This is for my wife Ruth. She and my daughters have allowed me to do what I've done, whether it's been in the Masons. When I got my first step up from the local lodge to the district level, I asked my wife and my daughters, is it okay to do this? And their response was, well, if you don't do it now, will you ever get another chance? I said, likely not. And through the advice of the Davies, Henry Denmead, a couple of others, they said, do it. I became the district deputy, Grand Master of this district. Eventually, I became a Grand Lodge trustee for 10 years, which is, you may think the Grand Master of the state is important. The Grand Lodge trustees hold the money. The big guy doesn't hold the money. But this is for the love and devotion that we've had together for 67 years. A couple of tribute to her for her patience, and in respect, I've done that for her too, for the organizations she's been involved with. Go ahead and do it. Have at it, do the best you can with what you have. And finally, just my admonition to those of you who sit up here on the dais. Honor and integrity in your job is the most important thing that you'll be able to do and be comfortable with as a member of a governing body of any municipality, any county level, state level. So many politicians, and we never really consider ourselves politicians on this level, go to the big house because they've done something wrong. I don't know if anybody in this township, and I've been involved since Moses was still mowing the grass someplace, but none of the municipal leaders in this town have ever done anything wrong. So, be well.
I want to keep it that way. Please make it serious,
I will, stage right, I'm out of here, so.
We should be done in 4 or 5 hours. All right. Advise if everyone can hear me, we're going to move on with the meeting. Next, we'll move on to item 1, addition, deletion of late agenda items to be considered for action tonight. We do have a late list. We have 7G, resolution authorizing mayor and township clerk to sign final settlement agreement with the Victoria Point Community Association, LLC. And then 12, for executive session, we will be adding Township Administrator position and personnel, / personnel. We need a motion to accept those, or are we good?
You do.
We do. With that, can I entertain a motion? I have a motion from Mrs. Blink. Congratulations. A second from Ms. Hopkins. All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. All right. Thank you, Carl. All right. Next, we'll move on to early public comment on agenda items, excluding items listed for public hearings. Mr. Administrator, do we have anyone signed up?
No, Mayor.
All right, we have no one signed up for that, so we'll move on to 3 discussion items. First, we have A, which is constitution of COVID, continuation, of COVID exemptions. You should have a copy in your packet. Mr. Miller, would you?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, 2 years ago, in June of 2020, when COVID blossomed, the governing body took certain actions. One of them was to permit temporary signs to assist businesses to stay open. I've prepared a resolution, which is your 7F on the agenda, to extend that temporary signage through the end of this year. Hopefully the pandemic will pass by the end of the year. If not, the 2023 governing body can take action to extend it. And the other one I just want to get clarification on. Also in June of 2020, the Township adopted a resolution which authorized COVID-19 expansion of premises, and the zoning officer administration have relied upon that not only for ABC licenses expansions, but for other businesses to expand. A few that comes to mind is that the Mays Landing Diner and IHOP was able to do outside seating for that. Other businesses brought on storage containers to keep product in, to be able to create social distancing within their places of business. Other businesses may have put things out in front of their place of business or on the sidewalk so that people can look at their merchandise without going in. There was no, there was no expiration date on that resolution from June of 2020, and I just want to clarify that everybody's concerned for zoning to still treat those uses, the expansion of premises, whether they be outside dining or in ABC or non-ABC establishment, retail sales that maybe take place outside, and people have an additional capacity on their property through, we'll say, a storage container or something. Are all those things, as far as you're concerned, still valid in the community?
My personal opinion, I think the outside al fresco dining, whatever you want to call it, adds a character to the town. I think it adds to the overall experience as a resident and as a visitor or as a transient. I think that I personally would like to see it extended indefinitely, but that's just me personally. But as far as the ABC, yeah, I mean, I believe all those things need to be extended at least through the end of the pandemic.
Well, in the ABC with the license renewals on July 1, all that expansion was included in their license have been renewed through June 30th of 2023 already. I just wanted to whether or not you want to do another resolution to restate your commitment to allow people to do these things outside with the upcoming year, or whether or not the resolution from almost 2 years ago is satisfactory.
Well, in my opinion, committee, and this is obviously for discussion, my opinion, if that what the action that was taken, if that's still valid, I think we just run that through the end of hopefully we're not talking about this in the 2023 committee, but we run it right up until at such time the pandemic is declared over in the state of New Jersey. So that's my own personal opinion. The same thing with, I'll move on to the signs. I think the signs should be done the same way. So we have to offer our businesses here in this community any support, any little thing we can do to help them in this time of need. I think we need to do it.
Okay. Absent a resolution, can you make a motion that all the COVID-19 business expansion is extended through the balance of the year, so that is something on the record the zoning officer can be guided by?
Great. Before we do that, are there any comments from Township Committee members that would like to weigh in on this?
I have a comment, if we could go, and if it's feasible, to go to, not the balance of the year, to go to January 31st of 2023, so that right now, as we're speaking the 18th, it gives us a month to extend them another, whatever the case may be. Rather than it ends the 31st of 2022, then we have reorg. Well, by that time, it hasn't been extended or anything. So if we go the end of January, right now, it's the 18th, we have time to either extend it or revoke it, but it wouldn't.
So the end of January or until such time that the pandemic is declared over?
Declared over.
Yeah, I think what Peter was trying to convey is in that, that resolution that it applied to the liquor stores, so to speak. But we wanted to apply to the other people like Mays Landing, County Seat Florist, the ones who had extended so if we can sort of some way include them in a little modification, I think it would seal the deal.
Well, if your motion is that the business expansion that has been in place since the summer of 2020 is extended to January 31st, 2023, is moved, then there's enough direction for the zoning officer to continue what she's doing, because she has approved the Mays Land Diner, the IHOP restaurant, and other businesses, the Country Florist, to do the type of things they've been doing. But since 18 months have passed, 19 months have passed, she's being questioned by people as to whether or not those standards are still in place. And as I said, while the resolution probably initially was to address ABC license expansion, the way it was written, there's no reference to ABC license specifically, but it talks about premise expansion, and the prior administrator, the zoning officer, used that to allow businesses to expand their premises during this difficult period.
Okay.
I think the clarity's there, don't we? I mean, it is,
think so.
does that change any, Ms. Hopkins, do you have any comments?
No, I'm ready to make the motion.
Mr. Patali, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good.
All right, so with that, if there is no other comments, I'll entertain a motion framed as it was outlined by the administrator.
So moved.
I have a motion, and I have a second.
Second.
I have a second. Rita, since we're taking formal action, can we get a roll call on this, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Patali?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Absolutely.
All yes and carried.
All right, thank you, very nice. Hopefully that adds some added relief and for those individuals that are struggling and just looking to stay part of our community. So, all right, next we'll move on to 3B. This is the position of police captain. Chief? Chief, I was going to dismiss you earlier. I saw Mr. Will in the room. I figured we had everything under control with him being here.
Exactly, we did. Good evening. I asked Mr. Miller to put this on the agenda tonight so I could speak with you all in reference to the captain's position. Currently, we do not have one, but it's nothing new to our police agency. We've had a captain over the years. We've done away with it. We've made a deputy chief. We've also had a flat hierarchy, which we have now. So currently, it goes me, and then we have 4 lieutenants. What I'm asking for is, after being chief for almost 3 years now, I realize the importance of having a second in command. Currently, right now, if I go on vacation or take a couple days off, I have to do an order basically giving somebody the powers that I have. If I had a captain's position, even though I would let everybody know, like I always do, I wouldn't need to cut that order. So what I'm asking for tonight is if you guys would consider putting that captain's position back in the ordinance and having 3 lieutenants. I'm not adding a position.
Right.
I'm just changing it, one of the lieutenant's position into a captain's position. Any questions?
How will that be determined?
I'm sorry?
How will that be determined? Who's the captain?
Currently, right now, we have two lieutenants that are eligible. We have another two that would be eligible in a couple months. Currently, right now, the two lieutenants that are eligible have signed a letter basically saying that it would be up to me, whoever I would deem necessary to be a captain, or who I would think would be the best choice to be captain.
Does that mean that if they're captain and you decide to leave, that they automatically become?
No, it does not. So we kind of ran into this when I became chief. So there was this idea that when there was a deputy chief, that automatically that deputy chief would step into the chief's role. And that's not how it was built. So basically, just because you're a captain doesn't mean that you're the next chief of police. It's typically lieutenants on up can apply to be the chief of police. In some cases, even in this township, it was sergeant and above. I think we're going down too far if you go to sergeant, but it's typically lieutenants and above can apply to become chief of police. And I'm not going anywhere yet, so.
Maybe to Florida now.
Be a lot warmer.
That's it.
Committee?
What would the pay increase be from lieutenant to captain?
I'm sorry?
Pay increase from lieutenant to
It's
captain?
approximately 10,000.
Mr. Patali, I want to make sure you can hear us. Do you have anything you want to weigh in on this?
What was the pay increase? I did not hear that.
It's coming directly out of your salary. It was 10,000.
Okay.
All right.
That's fine.
All right. 10,000. So Chief, you're asking for support of this evening, and what would it entail to make this happen?
We'd have to prepare an ordinance for introduction at your next meeting, which establishes the position, and then I can discuss with Chief how much he wants to define the position. But it would be a one-page ordinance which creates a title and defines the duties of the position.
So with that, you have anything else you want to add, Chief?
No, sir.
With that, I would entertain a motion for or against, as Mr. Miller just phrased it. So you can go with Mr. Miller's comments and for or against.
I'd motion for.
Or
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Cheek for. I have a second by Mrs. Link. And Rita, could we get and this is to add it to the next meeting, which will be an adoption, and then we'll have the public hearing in 2 weeks after that, okay. So, Rita, can we get a roll call, please?
I just want to be clear.
Sure.
Peter?
The motion is to authorize the preparation of an ordinance to create the captain's position.
That's what I understood, but the mayor just said it'll be on for final adoption at the next meeting.
No, introduction the next meeting.
Gotcha.
Final.
Okay.
Final the following.
Thank you. You want a
All
roll
right,
call?
we have a motion, second, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes.
Mr. Patali?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and
Thank you, Chief.
introduced.
All right, next we'll move on to 4A. This is a public hearing for an adoption of ordinance 1977-2022, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and establish a cap bank. Obviously, we know this is something we do annually. It is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak on this matter? Sir, would you please step up to the microphone, state your name and address, please?
My name is Frank Roby. Address is 309 Fairview Ave.
Thank you, Frank.
I didn't see in the ordinance what you're going to spend.
Okay, it's not for a specific expenditure, Mr. Roby. It allows the cap to go up to a 3.5% level, and then they have that discretion to spend the money or not spend it. If they choose not to spend it, it goes into a cap bank, which is like a rainy day authorization, that if sometime in the future there are things that have to be done and they need to exceed the cap, they can draw on that cap bank to offset the expenditures. This does not necessarily mean taxes are going up. This means that the spending authorization increases. So they still will be trying to balance the budget and not spending money for the sake of spending money, but it gives them the flexibility to do so sometime in the future. No, they still have to go through a public hearing for whatever the annual budget is that they plan on adopting, and the public has the right to comment on that time. It gives them a couple extra $100-some thousand more flexibility if they can offset it with revenue, or there's something that comes along unforeseen. Like when the pandemic came along, there was tens of thousands of dollars spent that wasn't anticipated because of the emergency. So this gives the governing body the flexibility. There's a couple $100,000 covering the cap bank? Yes. Yeah, so while this is another $100-some thousand extra they can possibly spend, we have a couple $100,000 in the cap bank because they do this every year to give themselves the flexibility, but it's not an authorization to spend it. They still have to deliberate on their budget and prepare a budget. And this gives them that cushion in case something happens and they need to exceed the cap, the money's available there. But it is a balancing test that they'll still go through between the community's ability to pay and what is appropriate tax rate is more than we have an extra $100,000 to spend, so we're just going to spend the money.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, the way I read it was that this was added on to last year from the calendar year's budget 2022 that has already been approved. And now you're adding $851 million. That's the way, that's just as I read it.
Do you have a better understanding now? Do you?
I do.
Okay.
I mean, my whole, my thing is always, instead of increasing things, we should be cutting back. I mean, we're hemorrhaging tax revenue, and I printed out the Hamilton Law, and it looks like they went from 1.287 million, and now it's 120,000.
We suffered last year with the pandemic, we suffered in excess of $30 million loss in commercial ratables. I'm happy to say that this year we're not going to see that. I think the appeal process went a lot smoother thanks to Mr. Sandman, but we still have COVID issues that we're dealing with. And I think, and again, I'll speak on behalf of the board, one thing I can say is this committee, past committees, have been extremely good stewards of the public's money, and we do look for savings everywhere we can, and we're not up here looking to increase spending to raise taxes. I can assure you that. We're looking at, if there's any type of spending increase, we're looking to find alternate means to offset that. So I hope, and that could be through, if we're doing a project, maybe a land sale or something else of that nature, bringing other sources of revenue online. So the last place, I can assure you, the last place we're looking is to the taxpayer. Yeah, well, no, I appreciate that. It isn't a ball field; it's a recreation complex, which hasn't been updated in 20 years. You know, our town has grown significantly in that period of time, and there's a need for recreation for our youth. I'm sure you'll agree with me in this committee that investing in our youth is probably the best thing that we can do, especially if we can do it stabilizing taxes.
Just as an aside, do you have a number? I'm putting together a grant for fire department.
Okay.
So I've got the 30 million from last year. You know, if we had a rough estimate for this year. I mean, they're not going to change.
No, listen, I can tell you this, with reorganization last week, and the assignments that were put forth, I am on the budget committee this year. I spoke with our CFO, Ms. Lindsay, and we are scheduling our first meeting. She has some financial statements and some internal documents that have to get completed. We're scheduling our first meeting, I think, Cynthia, we said for the first week of February, correct? So we're looking to dive deeply into this very quickly. I would probably be in a much, much better position to answer your questions, or Cynthia to answer your questions after this meeting, once we get those done. Oh, it's due Friday.
If I put in, because I was planning on just putting in this 30 million last year, and this year is looking like it's going to be another loss.
It's going to be a loss, but it's going to be a lot less. I think, Bob, am I speaking out of school if we're talking probably?
You're not going to know.
Yeah.
Right, well, I understand, but I guess what I'm saying is if I just go in and say, we lost 30 million last year, you know, and so revenues are looking, going forward, restoring COVID, like
You can
Fortunately,
safely
it
say that.
impacts so many areas, and until you're sitting up here and you start seeing it, and preliminary budgets and numbers are brought to your attention, you'd be surprised how many different areas from raising your costs to reducing your revenue impact everything from even the police department. You think we don't want to put our officers in harm's way for no reason. So, traffic citations go down. So there's a lot of different areas it impacts that you don't see until you're sitting up here, so. But I appreciate you posing the question. I appreciate you trying to get a grant. All right. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Mr. Carrigan?
I'm against the cap bank because
Okay.
it's a bad idea.
Comments are well taken, Jim. I appreciate that.
What we need to do is to reduce taxes and also smaller government. We need a smaller government.
I think, Jim, you're in the audience every meeting, and I think you see, again, last year's committee, we looked for areas everywhere we could. I think at the reorganization meeting, we actually talked about looking at additional shared services and possibly consolidation of another entity in order to make smaller government. So I know you're part of hearing that, and we'll continue to look in those areas as we move forward.
Okay.
All right? Thank you, Jim. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this topic? Seeing none, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public portion of this.
Motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
With that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Carl. All right. With that, I'll entertain, is there any discussion, committee, on ordinance 1977-2022?
I just have one question. What is the difference between the cap, bank, and surplus?
Surplus is money you actually have in hand. The cap bank is a number which is a differential between what you're allowed to spend and what you actually did spend. It's not you don't have that money in the bank. So when you say you have a $3 million surplus, Cindy can say, here's the $3 million. When she says she has a $500,000 cap bank, it's a number, where the state says you can raise your spending by that amount because you have a cap bank which covers that appropriation.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, committee, if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mrs. Link.
Second.
Second, Ms. Hopkins. Rita, could we get this is for adoption. Rita, could we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Chi?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Patali?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
All right, with that, we'll move on to number 5. This is introduction of ordinance. The public hearing for this will be February 7th, 2022. First, we have A, an ordinance 1978-2022. This is an ordinance to amend 1954-2021 entitled an ordinance amending Article 2, Chapter 66 of the Code of Township of Hamilton, providing for annual salary increases and increase in salary maximums for certain employees, specifically communications officers. Peter?
I gave you a memo on this. When we were doing salary increases for the Teamsters, it was discovered that one of our part-time communications officers with a 2.25% raise for 2022 would exceed the $18 cap on part-time salaries. This ordinance is to increase that number to 19. The person goes to $18 and some change. And then next year it would be about another 30-cent increase. So we don't have to change it. I recommend we set the number at $19 per hour there's only one individual that exceeds the exceeding the $18 an hour at this time. And I think you sent a revised copy of the ordinance. At the original ordinance that went out, we had a typo that we missed when we edited the last ordinance that we did.
Yeah, it's just on,
The second whereas, we had the Deputy Chief Financial Officer, and we forgot to change that to Communications Officer when we drafted this.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. I mean, it's a 2.25 increase, which takes it to 18 and change, and the following year, it'll be the same. So 19 will capture both years.
Yes.
So I think that
Yeah, I
would
think
be,
it's a good move that they did it for 2 years in a round number. you know.
yeah, absolutely.
Committee, what's your pleasure?
I'll motion.
I have a motion for introduction. I have a second.
For adoption.
For adoption, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, introduction, right.
Introduction.
Thank you. So we have a motion for, introduction. I have a motion and a second. Rita, just, let's do a roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Carl, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, okay. And,
Yes.
Mayor King?
yes.
All yes and introduced.
All right. Moving on, next we'll move on to 6A. This is a resolution authorizing the law firm of Caravan Morris PC to continue township representation in the matter of Targan versus the Township of Hamilton.
I could report on that if you like.
Would you please, Mr. Sandman?
Our Labor Council was Blaney and Caravan. They have had an amicable split in their partnership. Mr. Blaney was recently reappointed as our Labor Council. Mr. Caravan, his former partner, was handling a matter that I had a conflict with involving calling of a bond for Mr. Targan. The conflict is that Mr. Targan's law firm shares office space in our building. So it was my advice to Peter Miller to keep Caravan on because they're wrapping up that litigation. And they're actually, at this moment, preparing to file a motion for summary judgment, which, if successful, will end the case. It would not make sense to start up with a new law firm.
I agree with that entirely.
Yeah, that sounds very,
This has been ongoing for years, committee, if you're not aware of it. And it does sound, I thought we were very close in the summer, right, Peter? Fall of last year, I believe?
In August, we had a court order mediation session that started out pretty well, but it went downhill rather quickly. Mr. Targan took some very difficult positions that we weren't able to resolve with him.
So to Mr. Sandman's point, committee, it would be ridiculous for the time that this has been going on, in my opinion, to start over with someone else, and I think this is pretty much just housekeeping here, so. But
And the reason the resolution is necessary is ethical. A substitution of attorney has to be filed, substituting the Caravan firm in for the Blaney firm.
Great.
it's my understanding that Caravan has been working on this
It's true, for
Yeah.
quite some time.
and has great knowledge of, it's going on.
He is intimately aware of the facts of the case.
I was going to say that.
We would spend a
just
tremendous amount of
that
money
way.
bringing somebody up to speed, so. With that, if there's no other questions or comments, committee, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved?
I have a motion by Mrs. Link,
Second.
second by Mr. Cheek. Rita, could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Carl?
Yes.
Yes?
And Mayor King?
Sorry, I can't hear a thing, guys.
That's okay. So Mr. Kelly voted yes, I vote yes also.
All
All
yes
right,
and
so
carried.
next we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have items A through G, I'm sorry, A through,
G is in there, added late.
oh, okay, they already put it in. So A through F. Is there anything anyone wants to discuss on that? If not,
There is a G.
There's a G.
okay, my document here says E.
Well, they added G.
Late list is 7G.
I have it, thank you.
You can handle G separately.
You want to handle it separately? So first, I'll entertain a motion. If no one has an issue, I'll entertain a motion through A through F.
I'll motion.
Motion by Mr. Cheek,
Second.
second by Mrs. Link. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, moves on. Now we'll take 7G separately. Mr. Salmon?
Yeah, this is an agreement that emanated from a lawsuit on a bond dealing with Victoria Point. Currently, we are holding the sum of $31,276.50 in an account that was the number that was settled the case for. This releases that money to the association to do the repairs that were embodied in the lawsuit. There's a companion lawsuit pending on the maintenance bond. This has nothing to do with that. So this is basically allowing us to release the money to the association so that they can do the repairs that we sued them to do.
Any questions, committee?
Are you saying that there's two bonds, or there's two?
This deals with a separate bond.
Okay.
The present lawsuit is a maintenance bond, and that deals with different items.
Okay.
In the case of the basin, it deals with the same item, but other items as well.
Okay.
Does this money go into a escrow account to make the homeowners association do the work, or does it just get released to them and they live with whatever they do?
It gets released to them. I have, the agreement will be signed, and it compels them to do the work, so they have to.
Okay.
All right, with that,
Okay.
any
So
other
moved.
questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved?
Mrs. Link motioned,
Second.
second by Ms. Hopkins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, we'll move on next to 8, personnel. A, resolution appointing fund commissioner and alternate fund commissioner to the Atlantic County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund, JIF, for calendar year 2022.
In the past, historically, the administrator has held the JIF commissioner position.
Okay,
Since I'm not permanent, Sue Giberson approached me last month and asked if she could do it this year. And I told her until the new administrator is appointed, the person may want to do it themselves, but we have to have somebody do it. Lisa Marcolongo has been the alternate for the past couple of years. She agreed to continue serving as that alternate. But it could turn out to be Sue as the alternate and the administrator as a JIF commissioner at some point in time this year, but they have a meeting tomorrow, the first meeting of the year, so it was necessary to get her appointed. It's with no additional compensation. His position is a normally meet during working hours.
well, we thank her for asking about it, and we thank Lisa for her contribution to this also. So with that being said, if there's no additional questions, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Hopkins. I have a second by Mrs. Link. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
B, resolution appointing Robert Watkins of the firm Mott, Watkins and Associate LLC as floodplain administrator effective 1/1/2022, 12/31/2022, at $150 per application, not to exceed $2,000.
So moved.
The township is required to have a floodplain manager. Previously, the community development director had a certificate to serve in that role, but we have nobody in the building that has such a certificate. We appointed Mr. Watkins last September for 2021. We do have a requirement for the floodplain manager to prepare a flood ordinance for us to be adopted by March, going to the state DEP. So the recommendation is appoint Mr. Watkins for one additional year. If you notice, the amount of money is not to exceed $2,000. There's not a lot of work to be done here.
Committee, questions, comments? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mrs. Link,
Second.
second by Ms. Hopkins. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Payne?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we'll move on to minutes. First, we have A, minutes of the reorganization and regular meeting minutes of January 5th, 2022.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Next, we'll take B, minutes, executive session meeting minutes of January 5th, 2022.
Move.
I have a motion by Mr. Cheek,
Second.
Moved.
second by Ms. Hopkins. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Vitale?
Tally?
Yes.
Yep.
Mayor King?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we'll move on to C, bill list. The bill list total was $5,742,883.27.
Mr. Mayor, if we can Mr. Vitale motion on that?
I don't think you're going to get that, so. Someone
Come on,
else.
Carl, go
moved.
for it.
Moved by Mrs.
Yeah, I
Link.
can't hear anything.
Moved by Mrs. Link,
Second.
second by Mr. Cheek. No questions or comments? Rita, roll call, please.
1 second. Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Vitale?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we will move on to item 10, reports. Mr. Administrator.
I have nothing to report tonight, Mayor.
You made that easy. Mr. Solicitor.
What he said.
But he said, wow.
Come on, Joe. Come on, Joe.
Joe,
Come on,
you're not getting
Joe.
away with this.
Come
You
on.
got it. You got to give us a report. Yes.
Actually, real brief. They did finally set the public information session for the Lenape Lake Dam. Actually, Mr. Vitale had gotten me some information today. It's going to be February 8th, 5:30 p.m. here. And of course, they're still trying to set up a meeting for the actual committee sometime in January. I guess you've had some difficulties. Haven't heard from that yet. Other than that, the only other really important one is 3rd Street. We'll have a pre-construction meeting in February. This way, hopefully, pass through the winter storm and the extreme temperatures. I don't want to start concrete work and then have to start and stop. So we'll do the pre-construction in February with them to start probably beginning of March.
And Joe, just hang out when we go in executive session. I may want you to join us for that.
Sure will.
Okay.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Township Committee members. Mrs. Lake.
I'm going to repeat something that our honoree had to say about the administration of this township. We have shown honor and integrity, and nobody has landed in jail to the big house. And I just want to compare it to Hoboken, New Jersey. And my niece, who was the mayor for 8 years, introduced me to all the pictures on the wall in her office of people who had gone to jail. So, hip hip for Hamilton Township.
Let's keep it that way, okay? Mr. Vitale?
Due to the circumstances I'm in, I'll pass on this. Reagan, Maddie, miss you, love you, see you soon. Thanks.
Ms. Hopkins?
You know what the thought came to mind when Jack Percy was being honored, that the sidewalks are really the ribbons that tie our community together. And we're going to miss Mr. Percy. I'm I just want to carry that thought.
Well, we still have him on the planning board, so he'll still be advocating, but I appreciate that, yes.
What I would like to see is all the smaller sidewalks joined together on Route 50. I would love that.
Jack and I have had many debates over sidewalks to nowhere. Jack tells me the term does not exist, but there's proof that it exists, so all we have to do is, we'll figure that out, and I'm sure that Jack's sitting in the back, he heard you. Maybe we can find out if there's something we may be able to do there, Jack. I'd just like to add, first of all, congratulations to Jack. I think it was a very nice thing for this committee to do, to honor him for all the years of service. I think we could have went another half hour with that presentation easily. If I would have went into page 2, 3, 4, and 5 of that, I think we could have spent another half hour, but it's a great honor. Jack's been a pleasure to sit with on various boards, and he's been an integral part of his community, and we just appreciate his volunteerism and everything he's done. I'd also like to point out that I received a letter which we sent back supporting BSA Troop 452 of Mays Landing, which has accepted the achievements of Eagle Scout Brianna Heather Stork, Eagle Court of Honor ceremony at their Eagle Court of Honor ceremony. Troop 452 was founded February 1st of 2019 as one of the inaugural female scout troops within the Boy Scouts of America. Brianna has an achievement of earning the highest rank in the BSA of Eagle Scout, but also the first Eagle Scout of Troop 452 and the first female Eagle Scout in the local southern New Jersey area. So we send her a letter stating such, but I just wanted to contact her, mention her at the meeting. Great achievement, and that's the future of our country, folks. So we need more Briannas in the world. Also, I wanted to point out there is a link to the federal government website where you can order free COVID rapid home test. You can order 1 package per household. There are 4 tests in each package. You can go to www.covidtest.gov, or you can go directly to the order page, which is special.usps.com/test kits. There's an article regarding it, but I'll read it. It's www.today.com/health/health. I'm sure it'll get you there, and it'll tell you a little more about the process. But please practice social distancing, wear your mask, and get tested when needed. It's very important. Hopefully, we'll see this thing in the rearview mirror sometime this year. So with that, I do want to thank the chief, and I would also like to thank Cologne, Lauderdale, Mays Landing, Weymouth Fire Departments, and our neighboring town of Collins Lakes. As you know, the fire departments all back each other up in neighboring communities. They have taken part in this. They are spending their time volunteering right now to assist one of our largest stakeholders and business holders in the township, the Hamilton Mall. They had an issue. The chief went out, it was discussed, and we came up with a resolution to help them. If not, the mall would be temporarily shut down while this situation was being rectified. It was a safety issue regarding a pump. It was identified that our fire department could help out, man it, keep the occupants of the mall safe, and more importantly, keep the mall open until the new pumps arrives. The pump, I understand we're getting tired of these words already, but it's a supply chain issue. It has been rectified, we understand, and the process of installing that to return things to normal is going to happen in the very near future. But I did want to thank Cologne, Lauderdale, Mays Landing, and Weymouth for the time that they've taken and volunteering their time out there to make sure that you have access, as residents, access to the mall, and that the mall can stay open and generate income. With that, I will turn it over to the public. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak? Mr. Carrigan.
Richard, did you give your report yet?
I can't follow Charles on that.
Oh, I apologize.
No problem. The only thing is, God bless Mr. Percy for the years of service that he's done and whatnot. But thank you for bringing that up, Jim. I wasn't going to.
Thanks again, Jim. I apologize.
No problem. Yeah.
Anyway, about the mall, I would like to see more stores there. We need one to replace the Sears.
So would we, Jim. And I can tell you that we have reached out to the mall yet again on behalf of the township. And and have asked them to just inform us of where they're moving forward, what they're doing, and offering any assistance that the township can offer. So we are waiting on a response for them. I know that, we sat in with meetings on them over a year ago, just prior to COVID. They were supposed to be bringing in a plan that the township could consider to help them become whatever the mall is going to become in the future, expanding on the retail options. And we talked about many other different options between housing and healthcare, and whatever it takes to make that mall successful, we want to try to accomplish for them. But it requires dialogue on both parts. We've reached out again, and we're waiting for their response.
Shoppers World, they opened last year, and now they're closed.
Well, again, we're doing what we can as a township to engage them and offer them the assistance, whatever we can do in order to make them, remain a viable partner in our community.
I certainly hope so.
Right? Thank you, Jim.
And 34 and a half years since the mall opened. September of '87.
Remember it well.
Try
I
to
was
en-
4 at the time, but
I was going to say, try to encourage everyone to shop there.
that's a good point. Very good point.
And the store there is Macy's, I think, right?
Jim, again, we've reached out to them. We're just waiting on a response for them. And I know from this township committee, we'll do what we need to. And I know from a planning board standpoint, we've had a discussion or two with them, and we're looking to help them. We just got to find out what they need from us to help.
And
All right?
speaking of Jack, I remember his parents. They lived on Route 50 near Spruce Street.
Jack
I
and
was
his
in my
family are
20s.
Lauderdale staples, so
Yeah, I was in my 20s back then. And, I'm now 71.
you wear it well, Jim.
Take care.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
I just wanted to give a brief for the school board. We haven't done it in the last 2 months, but we went through an org change as well. We appointed Beverly Parado, Harry Rogers, and, I'm sorry, they were elected, and we appointed Amy Hassa. Because Mr. Harrison chose not to take a seat due to health reasons.
Really?
Sorry to hear that.
Sure.
Also, we appointed a new president, Nancy Barr, and I took the VP role. Additionally, we'd like to thank the police department for doing a good job we had a lockdown. In the end, it was an accident, but the school and the police department acted very well, to the point where the teachers, the comments were made that they didn't, the students were so quiet that they didn't, police officers didn't know that there was actually kids in the school.
Wow.
So unfortunately, it went very well. It went very well. Unfortunately, it happened. The teachers were very scared because that was during the whole schools being threatened nationally all the time. So it was bad timing, but in the end, they did an excellent job. Both the police department and the school did exactly as they've always drilled, and we learned some important lessons from it. From that, we've decided to give radios to the police department to help facilitate better communication between the school admin and the police department administration. And so we're acquiring those radios and providing those to the police department. The school is also going on a unified radio system, so all the administration can talk to anybody in the administration wherever they are in the district. We also had added additional counselors to Davie School to react to increased concern about fights and students feeling that they were potentially in danger there. We've also working with the police department and the committee to determine whether or not we are going to increase our SRO presence, potentially using class 3s or higher private security to augment our current SROs. And I know the township and the school district is, or at least the school is looking to rekindle conversations about Duberson.
I actually had you being reached out to tomorrow on that, so, okay. All right, thank you.
About Duberson?
Jerry, thank you for your volunteerism, too. We appreciate it. Yes.
Sorry, about Duberson?
Yes. You and I, we can have a conversation on that, okay? All right, anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Link,
Second.
second by Ms. Hopkins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
At this point, I will entertain a motion for us to adjourn to executive session. We have two items, property acquisition negotiations and personnel. Specifically, I will preference personnel by administrator. With that, I'll entertain a motion. We may or may not be coming back, reconvening in public and taking action. Do you think we will take action, Mr. Miller?
No, sir.
No? No, okay, so it's unlikely that we'll reconvene in public, but we'll reserve that right. So I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Cheeks, second by Ms. Link. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that this meeting is adjourned to an executive session to discuss the following matters, which are exempt from public discussion pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law: property acquisition negotiations, property acquisition, and Township Administrator position personnel. Be it further resolved that the governing body may reconvene in public session to confirm the results of the executive session. Be it further resolved that the results of the executive session shall be made known as soon as the basis for confidentiality is no longer confidential.